Hello, shamanettes, and welcome to The Beauty Shaman. So today we are talking to the wonderful Ben Fuchs, who is a pharmacist, nutritionist, cosmetic chemist, and creator of Truth Treatments Skincare. And today we are going to talk about nutrition for acne. Now, I want to say, I got to tell a quick story before I let you speak. I had a woman sit next to me at some sort of gathering, and she said, my daughter has really bad acne. What should she do? And I said, take out gluten and sugar. And she goes, oh no, she'll never do it. And I said, then forget it. You may as well go along and take tetracycline, which is going to destroy all your gut bacteria. So I'm sure I did not make a friend that day. But let's talk about acne nutrition.
Well, that's a really interesting story that you told, and I'll tell you for a couple of reasons. And I hear that all the time too. Oh, I'm never going to do that. They'll never do that. But here's the thing: acne is a couple things. First of all, acne that appears on the side of the face, which is where gluten and sugar and food allergies occur, is different from acne that's in the T-zone.
Oh, interesting.
Didn't know that. Types, those are two different types of acne. And this is actually not even really acne. This is an immune system condition. True acne is a condition that involves three major components. Number one, true acne, androgenic acne, T-zone acne, involves rapid division of skin cells, keratinocytes. That's step number one. And along with that rapid division of skin cells, you get rapid secretion and excess secretion of protein called keratin. Think of your fingernails. So step number one for acne is rapid division of skin cells and excess secretion of fingernail. I call it fingernail. It's really the protein keratin. Okay, it's a hard protein like your fingernail. Okay, rhinoceros's horns are made up of keratin. Okay, horse hooves are made up of keratin. It's a hard protein that's found in nature. Feathers contain large amounts of keratin. Your hair contains keratin. Wherever nature needs hardness, it'll put keratin. So number one, not wherever, but in a lot of places. So number one, you have rapid division of cells. And I'll talk about this in a minute, but just want you to get that first step, number one. And then excess secretion of keratin, the hard protein. Number two, and that forms a plug, by the way. Okay? So you have let me digress real quick. On your skin, you have circles, right? I think of rabbit holes. And the rabbit hole, the rabbit lives underneath, is like goes down into the tissue, into the skin. Okay, so you have a circle on the top and then a hole, like a cave, a rabbit cave in the bottom. That's called a follicle. And the opening is called a pore. Make sense?
Yes.
So you got a pore and then you got a follicle. The rabbit goes in the pore, that's the door, and he goes into the follicle. That's the rabbit hole. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So inside the follicle, you have cells. And the cells line the rabbit hole. These are called skin cells or keratinocytes. And when they're growing really fast and secreting lots of fingernail, they can plug up the hole. Okay? That's step number one in the formation of an androgenic acne pimple or comedone, as it's called. Now, in the bottom of the rabbit hole, you have a pump. It's called a gland, and it pumps oil. It's called a sebaceous gland,
right? And
it pumps out sebum. So now you have a hole that's lined with cells, rapidly dividing, in the case of androgenic acne, forming a plug, and you have sebum. In the case of acne, and I'll tell you why this happens in a minute, but in the case of acne, you have excess sebum. That causes a plug that's oily. First, you have a plug, the keratin. Now you have an oily plug. Okay?
Yeah.
Once you have an oily plug, you have an opportunity for bacteria, which love oil and hate oxygen and light, to go crazy in this plugged up hole with plenty of food. They got an all-you-could-eat buffet.
Oh, wow.
And nobody's bothering them. There's no light and there's no oxygen that's bothering them. And this is what causes the classic acne pimple or comedone. Step number one, rapidly dividing cells in the rabbit hole with lots of keratin plugging it up. Step number two, excess oils that are being secreted have nowhere to go because they're plugged, so they just sit in the bottom. They cause a pool up. And step number three, you got bacteria that can munch on this delicious oil, which they absolutely love. And there's no oxygen to kill them, and there's no light to kill them. They can go crazy and they proliferate. Next thing you know, you got a zit. That isn't how acne, that's how acne starts. or that's how, not how it starts. That's what causes an acne comedone. And that tends to occur where you have sebum, where you have sebaceous glands. No sebaceous glands, you can't really have a comedone. You need sebaceous glands. Without a comedone or without sebaceous glands, without oil, you just have a plug. That's called a milia. That's a whole different thing. Okay? With the sebum, that's where you get your oil, because that now you have that's where you get your zit, because now you have the bacteria that can eat. And that occurs where you have sebaceous glands, which are concentrated in the T-zone. Okay?
Okay.
Now, the second type of acne is here on the cheeks, or on the side here, the side of the temples, or sometimes here on the jawline. That is non-sebaceous. That is rashy and inflamed. And when there's pimples, it's not sebaceous pimples, it's immune inflammatory pimples. This is a condition that's caused by immune activation from the intestine. This is very similar to rosacea. And these patients are often treated with the same kind of treatment that the androgenic acne patients get. And all they end up is with a big red mess, because the problem is not androgenic acne. You can't dry this condition up. These patients will get retin A or retinoic acid, and they'll get benzoyl peroxide, and they'll get Accutane, and it doesn't help, because the condition is a defensive response to an attack inside the body, which is where gluten comes in, and eggs come in, and legumes come in, and all the foods that we know trigger allergic reactions. Now, to compound this condition, there is also a health challenge, an intestinal challenge called SIBO. You may have heard of SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. You know, you have probiotics, you have bacteria that live in the intestine, but they live in the large intestine. The small intestine, you're not supposed to have a lot of bacteria. However, if you're eating the wrong foods, or if you have a problem with your stomach, you're not making enough stomach acid, or if you have a liver problem, you're not making enough bile, or if you have poor motility, you're not passing food through your intestine, it's just sluggish, your intestine's sluggish. All of these can cause bacteria to overgrow in the small intestine. This can wreak havoc on the body on multiple levels. For one thing, the proliferation of bacteria in the small intestine can cause the cells of the intestine to inflame and spread apart, and cause food to leak in and toxins to leak into the bloodstream. That's called leaky gut.
Right.
And that can initiate immune reactions in the joints, immune reactions in the connective tissue, and immune reactions in the skin. And it might not even be associated with gluten or with sugar or cereals. It might be secondary to the proliferation of bacteria. And these are people who will tell you, everything I eat makes me break out. It doesn't matter. I'm off of gluten. I'm off of eggs. I'm doing, but no matter what. And you can react to avocados. You can react to tomatoes. You can react to lettuce. You can react to anything if you have this condition called small intestine bacterial overgrowth.
Wow.
Another thing that can happen is these bacteria that live in the intestine make a chemical, which you've heard of, called histamine.
Yeah.
Right? Most people think of histamine, they think of hay fever.
Right.
Or they think of antihistamines, right? Well, histamine is made naturally by your body and made naturally by bacteria that live in the intestine. And the more bacteria you have in the intestine, if you have this condition called SIBO, the more histamine your body is going to make. That means the more sensitive your body is going to be to assaults. So where a normal person might be able to eat certain foods, you might eat those foods, and your body, it will cause proliferation of bacteria and excess histamine, and you may end up with rashes and a histamine response on your skin. There's also foods that contain histamine. For example, shellfish are high in histamine. People think they're allergic to shellfish. Well, what you're really allergic to is the histamine, because you're making so much histamine. Now you put extra histamine into your body, and you go into histamine overload.
Wow.
Right? And so between SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, between leaky gut, between histamine, and then eating the wrong foods, you can end up with these rashes and pimples and a big red mess on your face. And you're going to get treated like acne if you go to the standard dermatologist, and it's not acne, which is, remember, acne is keratin, sebaceous glands, and bacteria. This is not acne. This is an immune response. It's a defensive response. And so you can't cure it. You can't address this with an acne regimen. You have to work on the digestive system. You have to work on the intestine. You have to make sure you're staying away from foods that feed the bacteria. Have you heard of the FODMAPs diet?
Yes, but go ahead and talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, the FODMAPs are a group of sugars. It's an acronym that stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, polyols. It's just a fancy way of saying sugars, fermentable sugars that aren't sweet necessarily. They're fibery and starchy, and they're like mushy, like figs and dates and avocados and pears and peaches, and apples have the, not so much apples, but pears and peaches have these squishy kind of mushy quality. And there's a lot of foods like this that can feed the bacteria. So you got to stay away from those kinds of foods. And the interesting thing is, the reaction that you have from SIBO and FODMAPs foods is very similar to gluten intolerance. So you may not make that distinction. You may think, oh, I'm off of gluten. What the heck's going on here, right? Not to mention there's other things, and vegans and vegetarians are the most at risk for this. And ironically, vegetarians and vegans will say, oh, I'm a vegan, I only eat really good. Well, that's the worst, because vegans tend to eat soy and beans and legumes. And those are the real problematic foods. You know, sometimes people will actually go carnivore. Have you heard of the carnivore diet, where you only eat meat, right? Or you only eat animal foods. And they'll say, I went carnivore and my psoriasis went away and my skin cleared up and my arthritis went away. Well, yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean that the carnivore food is the greatest food in the world and it's saving your life. It means that you're not eating the beans.
Yes.
And you're not eating the lectins, the defensive molecules that are found in grains and seeds and beans. Those are problematic. And it's not necessarily that the carnivore foods are so great for you. It's that you just stopped eating the problematic elements in the vegan foods and the vegetarian foods.
Right.
So the bottom line is there's two ways to treat acne nutritionally. Number one, you treat it, if you have acne here, by working on your digestive system. And like you said, gluten and sugar and dairy and eggs, and small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, et cetera, et cetera. The only real way to do that is to do a food diary and to write down everything you're eating and look for flare-ups and form a connection between everything. Use stomach acid supplements, betaine, HCl, and apple cider vinegar, and digestive enzymes. And we can talk about digestive support on another video because it's really important. But you work on the digestive system, and that's for this kind of acne. And the good news is, there's good news and bad news. The good news is, and this is what your friend should, you know, the lady at the party that you were talking to, this is what she should know, and people who have this condition. The bad news is, I'll tell you the bad news first, it will get worse. Yeah. If you have this digestive condition and you're seeing on your skin, you don't want to address it just because it's cosmetically unappealing, but because you can save yourself from having cancer down the road, or endometriosis down the road, or an autoimmune disease down the road, or dementia or nervous disorder down the road, or interstitial cystitis down the road. In other words, every health challenge you can name can occur subsequent to this digestive health issue. SIBO is associated with every other health challenge. So you want to, by stopping the condition, yeah, you're going to clear your acne up. That's great, but you're also going to save yourself from having a horrible disease 5 or 10 years down the road. That's first of all. That's the bad news. But the good news is that as soon as you stop the offending agent from getting into your body, your skin will clear up. It can clear up overnight. Wow. At least it can begin to clear up overnight. It may take, depending how bad it is, it may take a while for it to completely clear up, but it can begin to clear up very quickly. This condition can resolve itself very, very quickly if you stop putting the offending agent into the system, if you stop feeding the bacteria, if you stop triggering the immune response. Make sense? So the good news is you take care of it quickly. The bad news is you better take care of it, because if you don't, you're on the road towards horrible things later on down, you know, in the coming months, in the coming years, as you get older.
So when I was a kid, I took tetracycline. I was given tetracycline. And so talk about that just for a minute.
Yes. So tetracycline works by obviously it's an antibiotic, it kills bacteria. So the thinking was, we kill bacteria on the skin, we'll get rid of the acne. The problem is, as we just said, acne there's 3 steps. Number 1, there's the hyperproliferation of skin cells. Number 2, there is the sebaceous secretions. And number 3, there's the bacteria. The bacteria are number 3. killing the bacteria alone is not going to get rid of the acne. As long as you have sebaceous secretions and plugs, you're not going to get rid of the acne. Although antibiotics like tetracycline do have anti-inflammatory properties. And so some people will notice some results in the short run. In the long run, though, it's not going to get rid of acne. In the short run, tetracycline can have some beneficial results. The problem is bacteria that cause inflammation, they mutate very quickly and they'll get used to the tetracycline. So over time, it's not going to work. And that, not to mention the tetracycline robs your body of minerals like calcium and potassium. Right. And it also kills bacteria in your gut. And you need bacteria in your gut. They make vitamins for you and they detoxify food and they help with hormones and they do all kinds of things for you. So it's not a great strategy. And to tell you the truth, doctors don't do it as much as they did when we were kids. When we were kids, everybody got tetracycline and you stayed on it for months, forever. Some people stayed on it for years. In pharmacy school, they tell you never stay on an antibiotic for more than 2 or 3 weeks because the bacteria will adjust to it and then it won't work anymore. But with tetracycline, dermatologists felt very comfortable keeping kids on tetracycline for their whole life, or at least for years, right? So that's not a great strategy, above and beyond the fact that there's other factors that are involved in the formation of a comedone. So let's get to the nutrition part, okay? Yeah, because that's what we're going to talk about. So you got 3 elements here to the bacteria, to the comedone. The bacteria are the last. The first 2 elements, without which you can't have acne, are the hyperproliferation of the keratinocytes, the skin cells, and lots of keratin, lots of fingernail. So, and the second is lots of oil. So let's talk about the first one. The number 1 cause of hyperproliferation of skin cells is deficiencies in vitamin A. Vitamin A is a control vitamin that puts the brake on hyperproliferation. Under conditions of vitamin A deficiency, cells go crazy, especially skin cells. And in fact, vitamin A is skin cancer treatment and lung cancer treatment and actinic keratosis treatment and hyperkeratosis pylorus treatment, chicken skin treatment. That's the vitamin A is the treatment for it because vitamin A slows down the growth and the division of keratinocytes, of skin cells. So for any hyperproliferative condition, whether it's psoriasis, whether it's cancer, whether it's acne, think vitamin A. This is what makes vitamin A so darn important for acne patients, not just internally, but topically. And in fact, topical vitamin A is a prescription drug for treating acne. It's called Retin A. Yeah. And you can get the same benefit for retinol. Retinol does the same thing. So for acne nutrition, vitamin A is a must-have. The second strategy for dealing with acne is to control the production of a hormone that makes skin cells grow rapidly, that makes everything grow rapidly, and that's called testosterone, male hormone. This is why they call it androgenic acne. Androgens are male hormones. So testosterone is a male hormone. Women make testosterone. Don't think of it like a man hormone. Think of it like a male hormone. Women make it too, and men make female hormones. So controlling not only testosterone, but controlling something called super testosterone. So you got testosterone, which is a growth substance, and you have super testosterone. Super testosterone is only supposed to come out in very, very small amounts, but under certain conditions, deficiency conditions, super testosterone levels go up really high. Super testosterone is associated with male pattern baldness. Super testosterone is associated with prostate issues. And super testosterone is associated with rapid division of skin cells and skin oils, excess secretion of skin oils. So slowing down the production of and reducing the amount of super testosterone. By the way, super testosterone is called DHT. I don't know if you've ever heard that term.
Oh, okay. I've heard of DHT. Okay. Yeah.
DHT, dihydrotestosterone. That's super testosterone. And super testosterone can be slowed down by using the mineral zinc. And zinc is the second most important, along with vitamin A. I don't want to say the second most, but the second important nutrient for controlling acne by virtue of its ability to reduce the production of super testosterone. So everybody with acne should be on 20,000 IU vitamin A and 50 milligrams a day of zinc picolinate. I put all these in my blemish repair complex. And then the third strategy for dealing with acne is to androgenic acne is to reduce blood sugar and insulin. In the old days, which old days is when I was in pharmacy school, they used to call acne skin diabetes. And they would give, before they had Accutane and before they had retinoic acid, they would give diabetes medicine to acne patients.
Oh my gosh, I
Why?
didn't know that.
Yes. Why? Because diabetes medicine reduces blood sugar and slows down insulin production. Insulin speeds things up. Insulin increases the rapid division of keratinocytes and sebaceous secretions, sebocytes, the cells that make sebum. So reducing blood sugar and strengthening insulin is another strategy that you can use. And zinc will do that. Selenium will do that. Chromium and vanadium will do that. The B vitamins, especially vitamins B1 and B3, thiamine and niacin will do that. And of course, like you said to your friend who didn't listen to you, reducing your intake of sugars. And bonus, you'll also support intestinal health if you're dealing with SIBO. And it's important to recognize there are some unfortunate people who have both androgenic acne and inflammatory immune acne. Okay, and those people have to do everything.
Right.
We should all be doing everything, but especially those people. And the good news is once you start to restore, give the body the nutrients it needs, lower the sugar, stabilize the blood sugar, and then if you have the immune acne, work with the digestive system and the FODMAPs, et cetera, it can resolve very, very quickly. Acne should not happen. When Weston Price, who was a dentist, you ever hear Weston Price? He wrote a book.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So he went off to New Guinea and he saw nobody had acne. All the kids had beautiful skin. They didn't have acne. It wasn't until they started to eat a Western diet that they had acne. So the normal state of, even though everybody has acne or most kids have acne, the normal state of affairs is we shouldn't have it. It's a sign that the metabolism is thrown off. And the good news is once you correct everything, the acne will disappear. Last thing I should also mention is stress hormone, cortisol, will cause an increase in blood sugar. That's one of the reasons, one of the ways cortisol works is it causes the release of sugar from the blood. And that release of sugar from the blood will cause insulin to go up. So inflammatory conditions and psychological stress, these kinds of conditions that cause cortisol to spike, stress hormone to spike, can also exacerbate acne at the sebaceous level. And I always can tell if somebody's hypercortisol by looking for secreting too much cortisol by looking for oiliness. Oiliness on the skin is a sign of excessive cortisol. So reducing cortisol levels by, number one, reducing psychological stress, but also physiologic stressors, which can increase cortisol, and hypoglycemia. The very interesting thing that happens when you eat lots of sugar, your blood sugar will drop. Does that make sense? You eat lots of sugar, your blood sugar drops. You say, wow, right? So why is that? Because when you eat lots of sugar, insulin comes out and pulls the sugar out of your blood, and now you're low blood sugar. That's when you go get more sugar, and then you go hypoglycemic again, you eat more sugar, and that's what most people are doing. They're going up and down and up and down. So reducing sugar is another good way to reduce cortisol. So cortisol affects sugar in two different ways. Number one, when your cortisol goes up, your blood sugar will go up. But number two, when your blood sugar drops, your cortisol will also go up. So working with sugar basically is one of the most important things you can do from both directions. Lowering blood sugar will lower the release of cortisol, number one, and lowering cortisol levels will reduce the release of sugar from the liver.
You know, I think what's great about all this is there's a lot of different avenues people can go down. And so I think what you're sharing is important.
A lot of power. We have a lot of power.
There's a lot of power in it. Yes, and you can try this and then you try that. And you kind of, it's not like.
If you want something simple, for androgenic acne, get on my blemish repair complex and use retinol. And if you want something simple for SIBO, work on your digestive health, do a food diary, and eliminate problem foods. It's really,
that's great.
There are a lot of options, but that's if you really want to simplify it. Blemish repair complex and retinol for androgenic acne, and digestive support and food elimination for immune system acne or digestive acne.
That's good. I mean, that's a good nutshell version. I think that's important for us to have in our mind. But I also think if you or someone you know is struggling with this, to try all the different avenues. I mean, I'm a sampler. Like I'll go try this and I try things all the time.
Because you're a scientist at heart.
I
You're a
am. I'm a
scientist at heart.
researcher at heart. I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
am. I
yeah,
love it. I'm very geeky. And I think,
yeah,
but what's great is you can find that sweet spot with where your skin looks great, where you feel great, where
yeah.
everything's kind of in alignment. I think where we make a mistake is when we put things in a pigeonhole, like, oh, all you got to do is X. I mean, whenever somebody does it, I'm like,
I know.
not going to
Like
happen.
people go to the dermatologist, they get Accutane, boom, that's it. Nobody
Yeah.
ever thinks about the food, or nobody
Right.
thinks about the digestive system or the SIBO, or they just Accutane, boom,
Right.
just like that.
So I think the moral of the story is, ladies, is try all these different things. Is try them. Take notes, try them, get out there and sample. Thank you so
Call
much, Ben.
Suzanne if you have questions.
Call me, yeah, or call Ben. One of the harass both of us. All right, Ben, thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Good to talk to you.
And ladies, thank you so much for watching The Beauty Shaman.